Welcome back to the channel. I just got a new webcam over the weekend. It's really high quality. It's actually a lot better than I'm used to. It's like I'm really there with you in your room right now. Because I am with you in your room right now. Turn around. Just wanted to open by saying thanks for all the support on the previous videos. It's been really nice, like, kind of getting myself out there, really trying out a different kind of content. Appreciate you guys watching these videos, so make sure to like, subscribe, share these videos with whoever you want. Been really appreciating it. Also want to make sure that I plug my Twitch. I've been streaming over there 3 to 4 times a week. Lots of gaming stuff for those of you who are more interested in that. And I actually have been hosting a game show over there. Our second episode is going to be live on Tuesday, March 7th. So if you want to see clips like this, the main character herself has been called a symbolic character for every black girl growing up in America. Davis!
What is the hate you give acronym thug?
That is incorrect.
No!
You're so confident. We are in trouble.
That's incorrect.
Man.
Then make sure you check out Trivia Tuesday. And without further ado, let's get into the movies. I started off this month watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the original, and it was fine. As some of you guys know, I've been working on a Disney video for a while. Got a lot of the script drafted, just haven't really recorded any of this stuff, hoping to put it out. So I needed to rewatch this one to kind of get some more feelings behind it, because it's been a while since that I watched it, and it's really okay. It looks and feels like the first animated movie ever fully released. It's got a lot of charm. Animation is gorgeous, especially for the time. But really where I think this story lacks is in its story. It's an 80-minute movie, 90-minute movie, and it feels like it. You wouldn't expect something like this to drag on, but in a story that feels like it can be accomplished in 20 to 30 minutes, the extra 60 minutes really do feel like an extra 60 minutes. A lot of it is charming, but the stuff that doesn't really work for me is the extended story stuff. I don't really like Snow White singing that much, especially compared to other Disney princesses. And overall, I just think there's a lot of aspects of this movie that could be improved upon, and it is improved upon in later Disney movies, but I just don't think this is necessarily a hallmark of animation like everybody says there is. There's a lot of movies that will come in the next 20 years that absolutely blow it out of the water. Then I rewatched The Three Caballeros, and I genuinely think that this is one of the most underrated Disney movies of all time, especially within these first 20 years of films. It's just so vibrant and fun. It built upon this early Disney concept of the package film and exploring other countries' cultures, and it does a really good job, especially in the animation department and the charisma department. It's just such a fun romp to go through. I watched this with my Twitch subs, actually, and if you're interested in getting involved in that, make sure to subscribe over there. But it was just such what they called like a dream sequence type movie. It was just like an acid trip kind of fun romp through early Disney. It's one of the first mixes of animation and live action, and I think it's one of the only uses of it that works in this era. And the characters are just so off the wall. Donald Duck is a horny motherfucker this entire movie, and it's just so completely out of what you'd expect from this era of animation. And if you're looking for just a really short kind of hodgepodge of Disney animation with lots of life and character within it, this is one of my favorites to go back to. It really surprises me. Then I rewatched The Banshees of Inisherin. I talked about this last month. It's my frontrunner for Best Picture this year, outside of Everything Everywhere All at Once. I love both those movies about equally, I would say. Second watch, I would say I noticed the music a lot more. I really grew to love Kerry Condon's performance a lot. Barry Keoghan also was better this time around for me. I thought he was a little annoying at first, and that's kind of the point. But he was really good. Two leads, fantastic as always. Colin Farrell's my lock for Best Actor. I really hope he wins it. Just a fantastic movie overall about dealing with relationships and your place in life and how you deal with these interpersonal facets of our world. And it talks about them in such a nuanced way that I think that we don't always get to talk about, with what happens when friendship doesn't mean as much to the other person, what happens with unrequited friendship, and with these kind of one-sided ways that we view each other. So absolutely worth a watch if you haven't. It's on the top of, it should be the top of your list for movies to watch from this Oscar list. And I think admittedly this one kind of disappointed me. I liked the movie a lot. I would give it an 8 out of 10. It was definitely a worthwhile watch. But from what other people were talking about it, I just expected it to emotionally impact me a bit more as someone who's really been getting into movies recently. But I think that, especially in the discourse that I've seen recently from Twitter, especially, this movie should be talked about more for its familial relationships and the relationship that the main character has with film rather than the way that films impact us. And how perceiving your world through the lens of a filmmaker or the lens of someone working in media really impacts the way that you see the world around you. And I think that's exemplified through his family's relationships. He sees kind of his family crumbling around him in this like dysfunctional kind of world that he lives in through the lens of someone who may use it one day to exploit in a movie, which I think is something that we don't always necessarily explore in movies, is how these people use their experiences and how it impacts their life, and not just how these experiences are impacted in their films later on, but how those experiences are viewed through this lens. So I thought that was a more important takeaway from it than just, ooh, movies are really cool, you know what I mean? Paul Dano is great. I'm surprised he didn't get shortlisted for the Oscars. That was the big surprise for me. Michelle Williams was great. Judd Hirsch was great. Definitely worth your time, just not as fantastic, I guess, or as wowed as I was expected to be by this. Then I watched About Time, and I think a lot of people come out of this movie feeling depressed, like, wow, it's just such a terrible ending to see that even the most tragic things that happen in your life, people who can time travel can't even fix them. And I think that really what they hammer home at the end of the movie, and what I think should be everybody's outlook on it, is that you should take in the beauty of your life as it comes and make sure that you take the time to enjoy every little aspect of it. Because you never know what you'll miss if you focus on things that are superficial or things that are out of your control, and understanding that every day is as it comes. And if you take advantage of it, you'll be able to live your life to the fullest. I think it's kind of this really cool outlook on what you're doing. And I've seen myself try to take that into account in the days that I've lived since I watched this movie. It's really nice. Domhnall Gleeson's great. Rachel McAdams I love her so much. She's great in everything that she's in. It was just a great little rom-com. I'm happy that I'm kind of getting back into watching these movies. They're really nice. Then I watched Magic Mike's Last Dance, and I saw this in the theater at 11:30 in the morning with 2 other people, the row behind me. They probably thought I was really weird, but this was just kind of okay. I'd heard really good things about Magic Mike XXL. I haven't seen either that or the first movie, so I was kind of hoping that based on the sequel that this would be something really interesting and cool, and it was just kind of what I expected. Channing Tatum did a worse job than I was expecting. Salma Hayek is good. The dancing is good. It's exactly what you'd expect from a Magic Mike movie, and kind of nothing more. It's kind of an interesting concept, taking the like aspects of theater and bringing it into kind of a non-traditional like performance aspect of it, but overall just really did not leave much of an impact on me. I was kind of underwhelmed overall. And immediately after, I watched Knock at the Cabin, and this did leave more of an impact on me than I was expecting. The main cast of characters is great. Everyone will tell you Dave Bautista is the best part of this movie, and they're right. He's fantastic in his role. I'm really glad that he's expanding his horizons. Kind of a more major Dwayne The Rock Johnson with what he's doing. But overall, the movie, the story-wise, I thought it was very gripping. I was enthralled the entire time, very on the edge of my seat. But what I was surprised about is that they changed the ending from what the book was, and that prompted me to look up what the ending of the book was, and it was more bleak than the ending of the movie. I would think, given M. Night Shyamalan's career trajectory, you would expect it to keep in line with kind of a doomer kind of ending, but I was just a little underwhelmed with how everything wrapped up. I would have liked a little more action as things came to a close. Kind of ended the way that I was expecting a movie about this topic to end. So I guess in that aspect, it wasn't as good as I was expecting, but the performances and the story as a whole really gripped me the whole time. I was happy with the product of it, and I'm glad that I saw it. Then I watched Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest, and I watched Curse of the Black Pearl earlier in this series, and I talked about how I was underwhelmed because of how long and meandering the whole story was. It felt like it didn't necessarily earn its runtime, given what it was about. And I feel similarly about this movie, just to a lesser extent. I think that the introduction of Davy Jones and the villain in this movie being way more interesting than the villain in the first movie. The story trajectory is a lot more interesting. I had a lot more fun following these characters this time now that I kind of had a better idea of who they are. The way that everything is set up is definitely more intriguing than the first movie, but I still do have the same issues with it. I did have a harder time paying attention to this than I have with any major film franchise that includes Harry Potter, The Hobbit, Star Wars, anything like that. I was just expecting for it to be more, you know, gripping, more something that I would be glued to my screen watching because of how people talk about it. But I'm just generally not a fan of how these movies are structured, I guess. Just underwhelmed by the majority of what is laid out in this saga. Then I saw Cocaine Bear opening weekend with a friend, and it was really fun. This is an objectively very cheesy movie, and it leans into it with really silly jokes, dialogue, very drawn out, very ridiculous story premise, and brings in a lot of aspects to the story that you probably don't care about to just beef up this idea of the cocaine bear. And the scenes where the bear is in it, it's great. It's a lot more jumpy and gory than you would expect from a movie like this. Definitely leans into the thriller and like bloody aspect of it, more so than you would expect from a comedy thriller. But the scenes that don't have the bear are pretty underwhelming. There's very few groups of these characters that I felt truly attached to, just given the premise of the movie. So I think it leans into its premise very well, but if you're looking for anything more than just a stupid fun time, then you probably won't like this. But I don't know why you'd see this movie anyway if you weren't looking for that. Then I watched Scream, and I think this is just one of those movies. It's a classic. It's an all-timer. I have no idea why I decided to start watching the Scream movies. I think maybe I've been seeing the Scream 6 trailer a lot and decided, oh, maybe it's time for me to start watching them. And I'm really glad I did. Really plays on the horror genre in a really interesting way. Not someone who's seen a lot of horror movies, so I think it's very interesting to watch a movie poke fun at all of the tropes and things that I have seen as an outsider of horror movies and being like, that's really funny. That's exactly what they're like. You know what I mean? Characters do a great job. It really has this niche kind of genre of being a genuine slasher movie, but not taking itself too seriously. I think Wes Craven does a really good job of that. I love Nightmare on Elm Street, and I'm not surprised I like this. Just the main cast does a fantastic job. Courtney Cox, Neve Campbell, David Arquette. I'm really glad that they all stick around. They do a fantastic job. The world that this builds is super interesting, and it prompted me to actually be interested in this series. So I would say that if you're getting into horror, if you're trying to watch a movie to start off, this is an excellent place to start. Definitely a lighter kind of movie to go into, especially in terms of jump scares and gore and stuff. It's not something that I would typically enjoy, but it's really brought me into the genre in a cool way. Also, Matthew Lillard, like, come on. He's such a silly little guy in this one, dude. Watch it for him alone. He's just great. I then promptly watched Scream 2, and I always thought of horror movie genres and series as these things that just scale on forever and always get worse. And after the first movie, it's all downhill from there. And they kind of poke fun at that. But ironically enough, Scream is one of the only franchises with this amount of movies that I've seen where the quality is just stagnant. It is fantastic how they've been able to adapt this kind of like poke fun at horror movie into something that actually has lasted. I really enjoyed this movie. I love how they play on the sequel. I love how they take the new setting of college and really kind of make the first movie over again into something that is still intriguing and something that still keeps me on my toes. The main cast is still really good. Lots of surprise characters that I wasn't expecting to like that I did end up liking by the end of it. Courtney Cox redemption story, really. And yeah, it's just a really great sequel. One of the only sequels to a popular franchise that has not disappointed me. So really happy to say that. And then several hours after that, I finished up the month with Scream 3. And I would have to say that I like this one even more than Scream 2. I really liked how they played on the whole making a movie about the scary movie theme. And everybody was just, it just gets sillier every time, man. They just kind of know what they're doing is silly, and they take this very, like, overdone concept and make it super interesting. This cast of characters, I think, is the most charismatic and most interesting since Scream 1, and I don't know, man. These are just fun movies. There's no dip in quality. That's really what surprises me. Like I've told you about, you know what's going to happen in Scream 3 if you've seen Scream 1 and 2, right? If you like Scream 1, you will like all of them. I would be surprised if you didn't. And that, like, non-existent drop in quality is what I think is super interesting about these movies. So please give them a shot. If you're looking for something cool to just sink your teeth into, man, these 5 movies, spoiler alert, I watched the other 2 before I filmed this, but they're for next month. But just give them a watch. They're so fun. And that's what I watched this month. Yay! Woo! Yay! So much fun. Thanks for watching these videos again. I really enjoy making them. Doesn't take too much for me to do them, so make sure you show your support. If you have any movie recommendations for me, make sure to leave them in the comments, because even though I have a watch list of 600 movies, I will probably pick the one that you've recommended me first, because I am terrible at finishing tasks and really just try to take in people's suggestions as much as possible. Connor, I will be watching Casablanca this month. I promise. I'm really sorry. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, follow me everywhere, and just do not forget that I be watching movies. And I'm in your walls. Look, I'm in your walls.